Welcome back to Through the Leadership Lens, a podcast presented by the Women in Propane Council, where bold voices, big ideas, and brilliant guests in the propane industry take center stage. I am Freddie Ridler, and we're diving deep into leadership that inspires, empowers, and transforms. And now, joining me in the studio is my incredible host, the one and only Jessica Balderston.
Thanks, Freddie. Today we're thrilled to welcome Ray Murray from Ray Murray Inc., an industry leader known for his deep expertise, strategic insight, and passion for developing strong, future focused leaders. Ray has spent years helping individuals and companies elevate performance through training, culture, and intentional leadership. We're excited to put his experience through the leadership lens and learn from his journey. Ray, we always kick off the podcast with a simple question, but what's really interesting about this question is everybody gives their own unique answer. So that question is, what does leadership mean to you and how has it changed over the years?
Leadership to me really means having responsibility for the people that work for you or that you work with. And I think of leadership as kind of uh, the servant model. In other words, the most important thing I think you can do as a leader or someone responsible in an organization is to set the example. If you're not walking the walk and just talking the talk, that just doesn't last. So I think setting the example is probably the most important thing. The second thing that I've learned, and it took a while, is that you're never going to know anything unless you ask questions. People are never going to tell you bad news, things that aren't working, especially if they're involved in that. So, to be, you have to ask questions or you're just never going to know what's going on. And the other thing that I found is in order to connect with people, you really have to know what's going on in their lives over time. And I think that's been easier in a company like ours where we were always known as a family business. We had family members working in it. Um, it was that was the culture. And so I think that knowing what's going on in people's lives is very important, and understanding the kind of pressures that they may be having at home, and uh, and I think you have to communicate. Uh, that's probably one of the biggest weaknesses, even though I'm sure everybody that's been on this podcast before has said how important communication is. And still, there's just every day we read in the news, we see at work, that there's a failure to communicate, and we just probably can't do enough of that. And the other thing is that I've always this goes back really to family values is. And my father was a proponent of this. My mother was a proponent of this. Is you have to treat people like you would want to be treated. Um, if you can't do that, I don't think you can be a leader. And I can think of numerous examples, in my growing up where, we frankly had a town drunk in our little town of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, and he'd ride around on a bicycle because he wasn't allowed to drive. And he was actually quite a nice guy, and he was a handyman. And when things were a little down and out, my father would hire him for odd jobs, to pay him and keep him busy and so forth. And he wasn't the only one in town that did that. So, and he treated him with respect when he came to work. And so I think that stuck with me. And I'm sure it stuck with my brothers as well.
I love those all great examples of what true leadership is. And you're right, we do hear communication, setting examples, right? But the one that stood out for me that I want to kind of touch on a little bit is asking questions. This is the first podcast where we had some guests say, if we want to be a good leader, you really got to ask those questions, whether it's work related or home life. And home life is so important to having good staff, I think. And if they have a good home life, they're going to have a good work life because some of that home life does trickle into the office. Let me ask for the viewers that are watching this or the people listening to this, on audio only, what's a recommendation you would give them to get through that barrier of, do I ask this certain person, are you okay? Are you feeling well? Is there anything going on at home that I can help with? Do you like your job? Are you struggling with your job? Like, I feel like that for so many people want to ask their employees these questions, but I feel like there's a fear with, am I getting too involved? And I just would like your weigh in on that.
I think it's a little bit of its intuition. I wish I could give you a formula, but uh, you have to kind of wait for the moment. If you see that somebody is visibly upset, it's not the time to do it in the middle of the office. You have to find an opportunity to kind of take them aside and so forth. And sometimes we're just completely ignorant of what's going on at home. I remember once when somebody came into my office in Lee and said, "There's a tow truck out in the parking lot that's going to take so and so's, hauling so and so's car away." And she had lost her husband and moved back with two young children to Lee, which was her hometown. So I just went outside and booted the tow truck driver, got him out of there, and then I was fortunate that the gal came in, and just as any one of the other officers of the company, my brothers or my father, if he was there, I wrote her a check and said, after she explained to me what her difficulties were, and I said, "There's no expectations on this," and she paid me back. And I know my brother has done similar. Jim has done similar things for employees. So it's just a matter of it's really intuition. You have to be paying attention to what's going on. And frankly, I had missed this until the tow truck showed up to repossess her car. So that turned out to be the opportunity.
Ray, I feel like I'm speaking to my parents right now because I just love all your little bits of leadership and tools and everything. And I just wanted to share one of the things that my parents instilled with me is that you don't know everybody's background story, but everybody will go through hard times at some point in life. So it's good to know when your employees are going through a hard time, you obviously want to help them out and be there for them, but you don't know until you ask the question. So I absolutely love that little tool that you have.
No, that's it. And my wife was a psychotherapist for 35 years, and uh, sometimes I even get a little annoyed with the questions. She knows how to ask questions, and unless things are clarified for her, her sense is that there's no possible way that she can make good decisions based on partial information.
You got all those years of free counseling. You're lucky.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
So, so Ray, we'd like to trickle in just some fun questions before we start the next one. So I have a fun question for you. How do you celebrate team wins at Ray Murray Inc.?
Well, as you know, I'm semi-retired, and Mike Hopsicker and his son Jeff own and run the company now. And I can say, and I love the way they're running it. I feel very, very good about both Mike and Jeff and what they're doing. And I'm so pleased that Jeff is in there. I think the world of him. Um, we celebrate big wins by, number one, publish or did, and I'm not in day to day anymore. I'm primarily only work part time and attend meetings and shows and so forth. So I'm not in the office day to day, but we would celebrate big wins by making a big deal out of it and letting everybody in the company know at the different locations what's happened. And Mike is very good at that now. And we did the same thing when we owned and ran the company. And uh, and also have a small party, whether it's lunch or a dessert or whatever. Um, uh, you know, uh, Let everybody enjoy the moment when that kind of thing happens. And so those are the type of things that I think continue in the company today is the recognition. Um, I can remember when our safety director, when he was selected to speak at one of the industry meetings, an email was sent out recognizing him and so forth. And there's many examples of that.
Speaking about the family business, 5 decades. Congratulations, over 5 decades. That's exciting. What are some of the key points that took Ray Murray Inc. from the small operation to the major player that it is today?
I think it was a just laser focus on customers and the customer expectations. And I always say that the brand came from my father, and he had been with Rego for many years with Sam McTeer, another industry icon, and both of them within months of each other went out on their own into business for themselves. And at the time, they had distributors in other parts of the country, but not in the Northeast and Midwest. So those distributors were taking care of customers, but the company was not taking care of the customers in the Midwest and the Northeast. And that's where Sam and Dad stepped in. And that I can go into all kinds of anecdotes about the focus on the customer. One of my favorites is that my father saw this in a restaurant at a busing station once, and it said, if you're not waiting on the customer, you better be helping someone who is. And which I thought. And then his other favorite was the customer is always right. And if the customer is ever wrong, refer to number one. And, now, we've had to fire a few customers over the years, so that's kind of a general statement. So, those I think that was his focus. Whenever we had an open house for customers, he was a genius at making a demonstration board to show how a particular piece of equipment or process would solve a customer problem. And even long after he was not involved in the operation of the company, he still added value because of his the extensive training he did, over the years for servicemen.
I think it pertains to most of our listeners here, but if it wasn't for our customers, we wouldn't exist. And by putting your customers first, that's exactly how you build your company.
Right. And the other saying was, unless somebody sells something, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, I think the way it goes is nothing happens until somebody sells something.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Ray, I feel like you are just an open book and you love to share your stories. So I'd be really interested with my next question for our listeners is what is something people would be surprised to learn about you?
Well, I think unless I've told them about it, was my experience in the Army. I think that's become a little bit more well known. I think I had put in some of my notes that I was on my way to graduate school in 1968 and was getting married in September of 1968. And I got my draft notice in April. So I went to see the draft board and explained to them that I was going to get married and going to graduate school. And the gentleman told me, congratulations on your upcoming wedding, but you will not be going to graduate school. So you'll be drafted before September, and then have to report shortly after that. So I scrambled and enlisted in the Army in the officer candidate program to become an officer after being an enlisted man for approximately a year. And that really formed me. I was a fairly immature 21-year-old coming out of college, and it was a wake-up call. And I have to say that I benefited immeasurably from that experience. Officer candidate school was 6 months long. Their goal was to put as much pressure on you and make sure that you could handle that kind of pressure. And my class washout rate was very high because it was a combination of combat engineering and infantry training. But to a person, the people that came out of that program were incredibly successful, both militarily and in their lives going forward. If they started out as a school teacher, they were the superintendent of schools. We had six judges graduate in my class, and one of them was a Supreme Court justice in South Carolina. And it went on and on and on with the graduates, and we stay close. We have reunions, but I benefited from the training experience and also from the work that I did and the people that were my leaders.
That's pretty amazing that it wasn't something you expected in your life, but it's who shaped you today. So thank you for your service.
Yes, and I have to say that a lot of my friends had different experiences in the military. They were very difficult. My best friend was wounded twice and received a Silver Star. So I'm not, whitewashing this at all. It was a very difficult experience, but I benefited enormously from the people I worked for.
It definitely sounded like it shaped you. Switching gears just a little bit here, Ray. So, building your company to the scale it is today has been quite a feat. As Freddie said, you're coming up on the 50-year mark, so congratulations. But it sounds like you've still maintained your core values of culture and customer service. So, how did you ensure that your values stayed intact as the company scaled and your leadership expanded throughout the years?
Well, that was a shared responsibility of my brother Jim and I. My dad didn't work full time much after the company was formed, probably 10 years. And we shared the same values. And the way that it worked is that Jim ran the inside operation and that type of thing, and I ran the sales management and the exterior facing parts of the business. And the thing that we shared is that neither one of us made a major decision in our area without consulting with the other. And it worked phenomenally well for us. And that's part of where my idea of sort of collaborative um, uh, work comes in. And I don't think we had maybe one significant disagreement in many, many years because we always found the solution. Now you can't do that all the time, but it worked for Jim and I. And but as we scaled up, we made sure that the people that we had were capable of bringing other people along. And names stream into my head. We're still in touch with most of these people, even though they've retired. They're still friends. And uh, one example, we had a gal that was a product manager for us, and she was responsible for probably $20 million worth of business. And her dream was to become a dentist. And she was, believe it or not, went through RPI on a Marine scholarship, full boat scholarship, and she got into Tufts Dental School. And that was a person that our main product manager had brought along. And so, even though her success was not within the company, she had enough confidence and background from her 6 or 7 years at the company to be able to get into dental school. And she is now my wife's dentist.
Oh my gosh.
The full circle.
Yes.
Wow.
I love that you bring so many stories of your staff and just your community together with your adventure. Every time we ask you questions about your business or your personal growth, you're always reflecting on people. And it's so great to hear that. It's the people that bring us to where we're at, right? Without the people, we wouldn't be here. I know we wouldn't be having this podcast right now if there was no people.
Exactly. And that's why I mentioned that to Jessica. Just make sure you have people or try to bring people in. And just a quick anecdote, I'm one of those believers that attitude is everything. It sure helps to have the skills, especially if you're going into sales or obviously if you're in the technical advice part of the business. You need experience, but attitude is everything.
So I love that, by the way, and yes, it is attitude. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit as well now. I have a fun question that's going to lead into my other question. And with my fun question, I'm kind of guessing you know where I'm going with this. Ray, if you were not in the propane industry, what else would you be doing right now for a career?
Mm.
And if you say dentist,
Or psychiatrist,
yep.
No,
therapist.
no. I would love to have maybe done project management. I know I was my career path was psychology, and I was going to graduate school at the University of North Carolina, or was supposed to. I had a research assistantship there, um, but I love project management, and I love uh, seeing things get done. Um, when you have the old project management, I used to have something like that on my wall, and it'd be the steps that we needed to do to complete a specific project, and I really like that. And because it may be a vendor, it may be an employee, maybe your salesperson is responsible. Somebody's responsible for each one of those, and it's fun following up, following through, and then seeing the product at the end. So that doesn't sound very exciting.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because I went down the rabbit hole in 2019. You were inducted into the LP Gas Hall of Fame. Congratulations on that. And I was reading your bio, and it says in here you weren't always in our industry. That you
Yes,
were once a bellman, a
yes.
room clerk, running a lawn mowing business,
As a young
directing
man,
directing traffic at a music venue, and
thank you.
even a tree climber. So I
Yes,
want to know more about that, and how do you think those traits got you to where you are today?
gosh. I'll start with Tanglewood, which is the summer venue of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. And my brother and I love classical music. So my brother and I had jobs up there, parking cars, when we were home from college in the summer as a weekend job. We both had full-time jobs during the week. I was in the tree business. My brother worked for a construction company. And so I spent a year in the parking lot, and then I was promoted to the orchestra gate and the front gate, where basically, I directed traffic that came in, and it was primarily handicapped cars that got up that far. So I supervised the handicapped lot, and longtime ushers and other volunteers were able to park up in that area. So I would let them come up and park, and I always had tickets for the every concert. So I would go into the concert, I'd put a jacket on over my uniform, and then I'd leave when they recalled the conductor and go direct traffic out. And,
Got the best of both
so
worlds.
Yeah.
you get a lot of people skills dealing with visitors from New York and Boston,
I bet.
the area. So, and then the tree climbing. I had worked at a major garden and estate museum
Okay.
for a Scottish gardener, and learned all kinds of pruning skills in that. And I was hired by a tree business primarily to prune. And so I learned to be a climber. And I wasn't that big at the time, and it wasn't as safe as it is now. But you learn to use the ropes and so on. And uh, one of the things I learned, I showed up on the first day, and the foreman was up in the tree. It was a removal, and he had put the rope on the limb to lower it. We didn't have cranes back then. And he said, "You know how to do this?" I said, "Sure." I'm So he said, "You want any gloves?" "No, I don't need any gloves." So he cut the limb, and it came down, and I had my bare hands, and the rope just went zipping through my hands. And
Oh
No.
my gosh.
and what you're supposed to do is wrap the rope around the tree, which I didn't know, and then you can lower it with your leather gloves.
Wow.
So I learned to listen.
You learn to ask questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh. I'm glad you are okay after that.
You
That
know,
sounds traumatizing.
the climber was the New England heavyweight judo champion,
Oh,
and
jeepers.
he
Wow.
looked like Mr. Clean, and he had a scar about 2 inches long, and he had it in his teeth.
Oh my gosh.
You never messed with Ralph.
No.
So, that was hard work, very hard work, but I loved it, and I still have my love of tree pruning, and I still, if a tree falls across a neighbor's driveway or something after a storm, I have a lot of land here, and I just hop in my RTV and take one of my 5 chainsaws and my helmet and chaps, and
And your gloves.
yeah, I still
Yeah.
do that.
It sounds like you learned from your original mistake for sure.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
and I made enough of them to learn from.
Ray, we're going to switch gears just a little bit back to the industry. I'm very curious on what you have noticed the biggest change in the propane industry and how it amazes you.
What amazes me is this was an old white guy industry when I started out. Everybody knew everybody. Most people had been around a long time. It was almost like a club, but a good club. And I was one of the younger people that started showing up. My father had been the chairman of the safety committee, and after he passed away, and had been in leadership roles, he and Sam both were. And Walter Cressman had me for breakfast one morning, and at one of the meetings, and he said, "You need to step up and get involved now that your father's gone. We need a representative from your company." So my brother and I sat down, and Jim said, "I'm doing a lot of work." He was the president of the New England Propane Gas Association, and I think you should do that. So I did. And the biggest change that I've seen is a demographic one, and that's related to other changes. You would never see a woman at the meeting. You'd never see very many young people at the meeting. Now that's completely reversed, and I think that's the healthiest thing that's happened to this business since I've been in it. And uh, I don't mind being an old foof. I'm an institutional memory person probably, but I love what I see happening in the industry today. And that same thing at NPGA. Steve Kaminsky and his team, uh, Tucker Perkins over at PERC. I just love what I see in our industry now. But that by far is the biggest change, is the the leadership from women and from other young men in the business, and it's all for the good, all for the good.
From the get-go, you've been a strong supporter of women in propane since we're on Through the Leadership Lens podcast. So thank you for always being open to all those changes throughout the year and embracing everything along the way too.
And he also sat with the women in propane at the Hall of Fame because that's where we said we need to get Ray on our podcast. See, it worked.
Well, Nancy Coop will tell you, and she and Tom Janicki did an amazing job getting this off the ground. It was Nancy's vision, and Tom had seen the success of a similar organization in the building industry, and those two put this thing together. And I can still to this day remember the executive committee meeting that we went through, because forming this council was not a slam dunk. And that's one of the things that I'm happiest about. Is I was chairman of the executive committee. I wasn't chairman of NPGA yet, but helped usher that through. Some fairly fierce resistance at the time. It wasn't. It was more a thought of, well, how is this going to really benefit the industry? People couldn't see it. Some people thought it would be a sidecar, kind of off on the side. And of course, it hasn't turned out to be that at all.
No, it's been amazing seeing it grow throughout the years, and I'm really excited for the upcoming years as well for everybody in our industry. So Ray, even though you've stepped back from the more day-to-day roles at RMI, with you being semi-retired, you still have an everlasting presence in the industry. But what would be some advice you would give to maybe some founders out there who are having to let go without having to lose that influence on their company and the industry? And then on the opposite side, do you have advice for people, the next generation taking over some companies, on what you would tell them?
Well, I think for people in the that are looking to step back, I think what they have to make sure that they have and are comfortable with is the people that are going to step in, whether it's from within, whether it's family, and or whether it's someone from the outside that's going to come in and buy the business and take it over. If you don't have a bench, it's not going to work. It's as simple as that, whether that bench is from within or without. And in our case, Mike Hopsicker came to work joined us in 2005 with the long-term interest of buying the company. And he was not the first person that we had given some thought to, either an outside buyer or someone from the industry. But it was a really great partnership. And so on the flip side of that, for somebody looking to step up or step in, I would say be prepared. And, the programs that WIP offers at Expo are an excellent example of the type of thing that you can do to not just to build your resume, but to build you, which is more important. So, and then ask whoever's in charge, your boss, your family member, whoever it is, if you're interested, is there anything that I need to do? Do you have any suggestions on development? Those kind of questions, so that there's some purpose to what you're thinking about doing long range.
Mm-hmm.
It all ties back to that communication and the asking of the
Yes.
questions.
Ask those questions.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, Ray, this was fun. This was exciting. I can't wait. People have been asking when you were going to be on our podcast. Now we can finally say, here it is. It's the stories that we share, right? The women, I've said this in one of my articles, Women Propane gave us a mic, but the industry gave us the stories. And we're so excited to share your stories. So with that being said, Jess, go ahead and kick off the closing remarks on this.
Yes, Ray, thank you again for joining us. Your attitude is everything. I absolutely love that. I want to put a Post-it note on my monitor. So thanks for sharing that with all of us. The conversation has been incredibly insightful, and your perspective on leadership, culture, and legacy truly gives our listeners something to reflect on and definitely take back to their teams as well. We're so grateful that you shared your time and experience and wisdom with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on Through the Leadership Lens.
Well, thank you. And it's been very, very enjoyable to spend time with you two again. Anytime,
Yes.
at meetings, at whenever. It was a pleasure.
Yes.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Through the Leadership Lens, a podcast proudly presented by the Women Propane Council.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, download, and share it with a friend or colleague.
And if you want to learn more about Women in Propane, connect with us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram,
or visit us online at www.womeninpropane.org.
I'm Freddie Ridler.
And I'm Jessica Balderston. Thanks for listening.
And keep leading with purpose and vision.